everyone, to episode 6 of Exploiting the Explicit. I am your host, Abigail Hathaway, and here is the co host.
Corey Diamond.
Woo!
Woo!
And we want to thank you all and welcome you back to this exciting episode. If you have not already done so, please subscribe and comment below your thoughts and your opinions, anything that might cross your mind as we explore the various topics of today.
Yes, looking forward to our chat today. So, Abigail, what's this theory?
So, I have a theory, although I don't have a name for this theory.
Mm.
I always reference it and call it my Mandelbrot theory. But if you've ever heard of the Mandelbrot set in mathematics. Now, without going in too much foundationary detail, because this might even need to be just kind of like a precursor or a seed planted for a future episode where I could go into this detail and explain it more.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever experienced the phenomenon where, say, you're like living a certain way and you have certain habits, say you get out of your old self and now you live a whole new lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
whole new way of being, you have a different routine, you have different friends, you do different habits, right? But have you ever fallen off that path and then started doing old habits or old routines or old patterns that you once used to do? Like, for example, say, like when you hung out with an old group of friends, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you start doing those actions again and those habits again, those people that you once used to talk to pop back up randomly in your life. They find a way to reach out
Mm.
even if they didn't have your phone number anymore.
Mm.
Or because that's something that I've noticed. It's like I'll align my mind, body, and soul. I'll be on my journey. I'll be on my path, and then I'll like waver and I'll change the variables. The variables being the actions that I take. And I change the variables, and then all of a sudden the variables around me shift. So then if I change my variables to be just like past variables of a certain stage, chapter, or era in my
Mm.
life, then all of a sudden things start to rearrange themselves to bring back literally what it was, the people or the environment or the thought processes that I even had during that time.
Mm.
And the reason that I associate this to the Mandelbrot set, like I'm saying, this is just too much detail without charts and explanations here. But if you know anything about Mandelbrot and the the graph behind it, where there's like an XY axis, and it creates this pattern based off the variables that you input for X and Y. And you could like zoom into this pattern for infinity and it's just replications of this pattern, and you can zoom out for infinity and its replications. And I saw this video of this mathematician explaining this concept. And like when you go to the edges of this pattern, there will either be harmony within the pattern or there will be chaos if you go and cross the boundary outside of this pattern. And so I've always kind of looked at life where your actions are like X and Y. And as you change these variables on this XY axis, it either puts your life more into order or more into chaos. And
Mm.
like, say, if you revisit those exact variables on that graph, the same X and Y variables, then you're going to experience the same thing in that XY area, if that
Wow.
makes sense. And
Interesting.
like, I have a whole theory on this, but I haven't named it or coined it or turned it into anything yet. But something was just eating away at me to talk about this
Wow.
today.
I like it. No, that's deep. I mean, there's so many areas that I could like contribute to this thought from. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is how it sounds like, from just the perspective that I'm familiar with, is the difference between like divine destiny and free will. That's kind of
Yeah.
what the X and Y axis kind of reminds me of. And so it's like when your free will is aligned with your divine destiny, then you have this harmony. Whereas when your free will is out of line with the divine destiny, that's where the chaos comes in.
Oh, it's
And
almost like the Mandelbrot pattern. The inside that pattern is the divine, where you can play around with your free will and your fate. Whereas if you go outside of that boundary, that's where the chaos
yeah,
occurs.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking. That's what's like coming to me
interesting.
as like the mental image I was having as you were explaining it. I was thinking like, yeah, because I have experienced that when I'm like in line with like my divine destiny, my purpose, like when I'm
Yeah,
on my path, so to speak, is how I usually say. It's like I'm on my path. It's like things start lining up in the right way. Like people with like toxic energy I don't hear from as much. Like it's almost like I repel certain
yeah,
people. But when I get back into like just a negative way of thinking, or kind of a lower vibrational state, those people start popping back up.
yeah.
And so it's like the energy of like attracts like, right?
Hmm.
And so once you start vibrating at a lower frequency, you start to pull back into your life those people and those frequencies that resonated with that lower level of
Yeah.
consciousness that you were at.
Hmm.
Whereas once you start vibrating at a higher frequency, those things will start fading away,
Yeah.
and you can only have room for the things that aid you in your destiny,
Hmm.
that aid you in your path and your purpose.
Hmm.
And so I realized that sometimes um the challenge with being strictly on this like divine path is it's the hardest path. It's the scariest path. It's the path with the least amount of um certainty. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, never done befores, and you have to constantly like step out in faith. That's why there's a scripture that Paul says, where he's like, um, "You walk by faith, not by sight."
Yeah.
And I realized that that is the path of the believer. That's the path of someone who's like ascending into their calling, their purpose. Is like you literally, it's like walking on an invisible bridge and hoping that you won't fall
Right.
because you don't see the path before you.
But faith would be knowing you're not gonna fall.
But faith is knowing, right?
That no matter what, you're not gonna
Or be
fall, of
even
course.
like, or even believing, because I think that
Yeah.
sometimes there's a difference between believing and knowing. And I
Right.
don't think we even are always as confident to know that we won't fall, but I think faith is stepping out and trusting. So that's where I would say it's like there's
Yeah.
a difference between like trusting and knowing. I think that
Mm.
like
Good point.
you can trust that whether you fall or not, God is taking care of you. You'll be okay. Whereas I think when you know, there's a certain level of confidence there, and you not just walking at that point, you running because you know that the bridge is gonna be there. Whereas I realize sometimes you don't always know, but you still taking a step out of
Right.
faith because
Right.
you're believing, you trusting, you know that God is like gonna catch you, so you're not just gonna stay in fear, but you don't know for sure what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's a good
You
point,
know?
because you could quote unquote know, but like as you're taking the steps, it's like you could fall because that could be part of what you
Ex-
thought your plan was
yeah,
and
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
God's plan. But you have that faith and knowing. I would say you would have the knowing that you'll always be caught and okay
Yeah.
in God's hands, but you might not know exactly which each step is going to have
Yeah.
either the solid ground or the safety net below it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like that theory that you have is what really can like mess us up sometimes when we on this faith walk, is because like s- it's sometimes easy to get distracted and think that we're still on our divine path,
Mm-hmm.
but we've actually like sunk into a lower vibrational state, and
Yeah.
like we'll take a step and like literally fall and be
Right.
like, what the heck? And
Yeah.
you
All
you might like
stability's
break a
gone.
arm,
Yeah.
break a leg, and you
Yes.
like crap.
Mhm.
I thought I was on my path and like I just got messed up.
You completely cross the threshold, and I wish I had the visual, because like when you cross the threshold and go outside of that Mandelbrot pattern set, then it like instantly turns to chaos in
Uh-huh.
literally one variable, one
Uh-huh.
change, like one tiny little, like when you're bordering, and I call that like bordering the edge of heaven and hell. Like,
Mhm.
because you can literally consciously like go in between the two based off of your thoughts and your decisions and your actions. So
Mm.
based on what you've been building up until this point, you can literally like dance between the two. And I played around with it
Mm.
consciously and subconsciously to
Uh-huh.
where it's like internally I have empirical data and evidence to
Yeah, yeah,
prove
yeah.
this theory. At
Right,
least
right.
for my existence and my reality, it works. But to be able to dance between those variables. And then you could, like, say you have your XY axis. If you think about it, you could consciously choose to reopen a door with, say, like a past buddy you used to do
Mm.
drugs with in high school or something, like the depths of hell, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're way over here and you're in your heaven. And then you could choose to, like, almost like pick this variable and then, like, walk through that door and migrate yourself on this graph to over
Mm.
here, and
Mhm.
then you're one variable shift away from absolute chaos or
Mhm.
stability. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I need to pull up this
The
graph.
graph.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
put
yeah.
like a picture or some sort of, I'll
Okay.
figure it out in the description
Yeah,
or
yeah.
pop it in this video
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can
That'd be
see what
cool.
I'm visualizing, this pattern and the XY axis, because
Y-
it is a mathematical universe and you can break everything down to equations.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. I mean, me and my mom and family was just talking the other day about the numerical language that God speaks in and like the numerical design of everything and so we watched this guy online like he broke it down to like with your age if you add your age together the numbers in your age together whatever that number is subtract it from your age and then that number you add together it'll always be 9.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we add our age together
Yep.
and then we subtract our that number from,
Our current age
okay.
and then whatever that number is, add that together and you get the number 9.
I don't know if it worked for me. How old am I?
Let's see. It works for every age, so it doesn't matter which.
32. 3
Okay.
plus 2 is 5.
Okay.
5.
Minus
So
32
32 minus 5.
is
20.
27.
Oh,
9.
it is 9. I added it wrong in my head. I haven't taken a math class in like 15 years. 14 years, actually. Not an excuse.
Oh, good. But yeah, it holds true. But the
Wow.
yeah, and so like the way the guy he like sums it up at the end is he's like if you go down the 9 times tables and 9 times any number whenever you like add up the multiples of 9 they all equal 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right. Yeah, because it's like the trick, like 5 times, or what is it? 9 times 4 is.
9 times
There's like a trick with your fingers that
I
if
don't
you
know the
like,
trick. I haven't
if you
heard
put
it.
down like, okay, 9 times 9, I put my ninth finger
Uh-huh.
down. It's 9.
45.
I don't know.
9
What's
times 5.
somebody help me
45.
out here? Like, there was a trick that like 9 times like what? 9 times 2, 9 times 3 is 27. Yeah, 9 times 2 is 1 8. 18. No? Alright, I'm ruining this
You need more
episode, guys.
fingers.
I'm ruining this episode. I'll figure it out, and I'll put like an article in the description of someone describing what I'm talking about.
All good. But yeah, so the so at the end, the guy he makes this point, and he's like, 9 biblically is the number of truth, right?
Mhm.
And so
Okay.
he's like, the reason why all the numbers turn to 9 is because at the end of the day, everyone has to answer to the truth, and the truth is over everything. And so, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Because I've looked into theories slash have my own theory that 9 is null and 9 doesn't exist. So,
Well, I mean,
hmm.
think about this. God does not exist within this realm. He exists
Yeah.
outside of
The
time and
unseen.
space.
Right.
So we can't comprehend God. So in our minds, he wouldn't we wouldn't be able to fit him into our system, our matrix, because he operates
Hmm.
outside of it.
Well, also, too, if 9 is all encompassing, but 9
Yeah.
also doesn't exist, is null, we live in a dichotomic universe where, one, it would be both things. It would
Yes.
also represent all of the unseen and everything broken down to the most smallest molecule or the smallest scale possible. Like, nothing really exists. It's all just waves, like
Mhm.
sound waves. And so, really, I mean, it exists and doesn't exist simultaneously. So that
Yeah.
would make sense for both theories to
Yeah.
stand true
Yeah.
simultaneously.
Right.
Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
Everything's both dead and alive simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at the stars, right? Like if you know much about like the theory of astronomy, like apparently every star that we see has already faded out. That's why they call it like light years or whatever. It takes
Hmm.
so many years for the light from the star to reach the earth that by the time, like theoretically, by the time we see the light, the star has already combusted
Yeah,
and
right.
doesn't exist anymore,
Because
you
we're
know?
seeing the
Yeah.
combustion
Yeah.
in a
We're
way.
seeing the combustion
Yeah.
of so it's like yeah, it's just crazy to think about the way the universe is structured and the illusions
Right.
of
Yeah. That's
the
what this
world.
seems to be, all just one big
Yeah, yeah.
illusion. Because no one knows what it is
Yeah. But we know
to
the
the
sun
extent.
exists and we know the planets in our solar system still
Hmm.
exist because they are still orbiting around.
Do we, though? Have you seen them?
Yes, through a telescope. I saw Saturn. I saw the rings of
Oh,
Saturn.
oh,
That was
fun.
cool.
Nice.
I was like, "Wait, you can actually see the rings of Saturn through this
Oh,
thing?"
wow.
Yeah,
Sounds like a powerful telescope.
I know it was. It was the telescope at U of M,
Oh, all
at
right.
the in their little planetarium or
Mhm.
whatever their little.
Mhm.
I don't know if planetarium is the right word. I think planetarium is the thing that is dark and you see the stars, but the observational deck. I forget
Yeah,
what that's
I don't
called.
know.
Yeah, but you can go. You can go like once a week during the summer.
Mhm.
They have it open to the public, and you can like go up there and look through their powerful telescope at
Oh,
the
good
sky.
to know. All
Yeah,
right, guys, if you hear that, if you're in the area in Ann Arbor,
yeah.
check it out. And then you'll have proof.
Observatory. That's what it's
Oh,
called.
right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's an
Yeah,
observer.
yeah. Yeah. But there's observatories in other cities too. Uh, so even if you aren't in Ann Arbor, check out your local observatory
Yes.
because I'm sure they would be happy to let you peek through.
And then we'll have proof that there is
Proof.
space and planets outside of Earth.
Yes. And then another interesting concept I heard recently was it was like Joel Osteen was talking about race, and he like
Interesting.
had a whole like episode on race and how like our race is only 1/16 of our genetic code and like why it's not a good thing to be racist. And I'm like, whoa, Joel Osteen is like edgy today. But like
Uh huh.
the um concept he said that I really liked, and it's kind of like connected to God and how we were, just on the God subject is he's like, "What color is God?" Right? And then he said, "Well, God is light, and light is a combination of all the colors,
Yeah.
and so God is a representation. Like he's every
Mhm.
color." And I'm
Mhm.
just like, "Oh, that's dope."
Yes, I love that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I was like, I haven't
Mhm.
heard that explained that way before, but I really like that.
Mhm. Right, and it kind of reminds me of the concept like Jordan Peterson talks about in a lot of his speeches is to find the light. Like you have to go into the darkness, and going into the darkness, that's where you find the light.
Mm,
So in the encompassment of nothing is all things.
mm, interesting.
I don't know why that came to me, but
Yeah,
this dichotomy that we're in.
yeah,
But it also makes sense too, like Imagio Dei, we're all in the image of God, and God being the encompassment of all things, because none of this exists too without light. Like if you think about it,
yeah,
in a way,
yeah,
um,
pretty much.
because it's just I don't know, yeah. And then our brains like creating this response to make it solid in there. I guess our senses coming together to make it reality, but it's like us being these images of God, all races would be under that. All things are under light, are under God,
Yeah.
or from God, or are God. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, he's represented in our expression of reality because all things come from God. I mean, as the Bible says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the earth was null and void.
yeah.
There was nothing, right? So then, when everything came, and like if you look at it from a scientific lens, even science proves that there was nothing, and then something came,
Hmm.
and the people who don't believe in God, they're like, well, nothing came from nothing. Whereas like people who believe in God and creator intelligence realize like, okay, well, something came before nothing. And so therefore, being that something came for nothing, that is like the genetic code. And so sometimes people can believe in both evolution and God. And so when they believe in evolution and God, they believe well God, he kind of started out the Big Bang and then everything evolved from there. Or if you're like hardcore Bible believing, you believe that, God just created everything and that's where everything is. I think that for personally, it's not so super important to get caught up on the details because like none of us was around when the
Right.
world was created.
Right.
So like no need to really debate the facts too much as to how we all got here. But I think as long as we had a consensus that like God exists and that's the only like reasonable conclusion to why everything's here, then yeah, you can base your perception of reality from there.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it makes sense just to work with what we got. Figure
yeah,
out how we can rearrange the molecules around us now and
exactly.
how things work,
Right,
and let's
right.
just go from there.
Right, right. But sometimes we get caught up on like the history of it all and it's like, the history of it is important, but science has evolved so much now that there's still things we're figuring out that we didn't know. So
Hmm. Yeah.
a lot of people used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe,
Right.
and now look, we're
Right.
like, oh yeah, we're just a little small dot and everything. So
We're just
yeah,
space dust
we're just
floating
space
and
dust floating, floating along. Just just keep floating.
Right, right.
Yeah, but yeah, no, like the whole like God being in everything really reminds me a lot of like quantum physics and
Yeah.
just like it's so many avenues you can go down to explore existence and like get a deeper understanding. And like I don't think any avenue has it 100% figured out, but you can learn a little bit closer to I would say the full truth when you have an open mind and you're able to like peel back the layers or whatever
Right.
theories there
And
are.
overlap a plethora of disciplines. Like all the
Yeah.
disciplines put together and pinpoint how do these connect.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because I think that's like it's part of God's designs for us to have like that ability to create things like him, and like understand things and like get a little bit closer to this, divine state of being that humankind is supposed to be in. And like it's like a difficult thing to explain, but like I think a lot of people go through life feeling bad about themselves and feeling like way lower than they should, and so they go around like not recognizing their divine potential, their divine glory, and so they just feel like unworthy and like shameful and just like equal to animals,
Yeah.
and they feel so like worthless, and it's
Mhm.
like that's the exact opposite of how God wants us to
Yeah.
feel. Like I believe we're supposed to have this confidence as human beings and realize like we're beautiful and created in
Mhm.
God's in his glory, and like we're supposed to feel good about ourselves and like happy, and I don't think we should be delusional, but I think we should recognize like, oh yeah, I'm creating God's image, so it's not like delusional or prideful if you recognize God in everyone instead of just yourself. Like
Mhm.
if you can recognize the God in yourself, you should also be able to recognize the God in everyone else. And when you do that, it keeps it from you being like narcissistic or prideful because you're like,
Yeah.
well, everyone is creating God's image, so
Mhm.
we should all have this feeling.
Right.
That's at least my philosophy.
Well, just imagine putting yourself back in the shoes of how you felt and how you looked at the world before you ever had awareness of there being meaning, of there being a purpose, of there being God. And then it makes you think, well, with this, like the masses and like the majority of the world not even having that understanding, it makes sense why they feel
Mm.
that way of not, not having purpose, not having meaning, feeling like shameful and like depression, like how it's kind of just like seeping across the nation, the
Yeah, yeah,
world.
yeah.
Like if you don't have awareness of God and there being a purpose and a path for you, then you are off. I mean, you're out of alignment. You're off your path. You're off your journey. You're living so much in this world of man that you don't even know that there's an outside to the world of man. And
Yeah.
then you wonder, why are you seeking all of these things to fulfill this void and fill this hole like within you, but yet at the same time you reject the idea or the thought of God so much
Mhm.
so that like you're stuck in this man, this construct created by man, this system created by man, and then that becomes your reality.
Mm.
And I don't know, it takes you away from ever being able to find that fulfillment and find that meaning and find your purpose in life.
Mm.
Yeah, and I don't know, I feel something has to click in you though, organically and
Like a
naturally.
spark.
You have to have that spark to come alive, to
Mhm.
know that there's an outside to that in order to be able to turn on and be able to know that we are in the image of God. God is within us, and to be able to see God in all things.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
because it's like God could even come through the most evil person,
Mm.
because it's like this, if it's a spiritual war within, and we're
Mhm.
constantly having these energies like come through us, and it's our choice to be able to, from free will, it's our choice to be able to capture those thoughts and act upon them. Good things can always come through bad things, and bad evil can come through good people.
Mm.
It's all dependent on the gatekeeper, that gatekeeper being you, the observer, to allow it
Mhm.
to come through or not, and you to capture that and act upon it.
Mhm.
And until you naturally have that spark and it comes through you organically and it's your choice, then you can't even come alive.
Mhm.
You don't know you're dead.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's deep. Yeah. And like when it comes to like people that are considered as evil and God coming through them, it reminds me of the Psalm 23 when it says like you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. It's like God can cause evil people to be good to you because that divine essence inside of them is being used to like pull you further, push you forward. And I don't think like any person is actually evil because I mean, and obviously you got people that's like far gone and they're like their spirits are so dark. They're as close to evil as a person can be
Yeah.
because they have given their minds over, whether willingly or unfortunately people in their life sacrifice them to have their mind given over to darkness, and so they
Yeah.
can't escape that way of thinking. But I would say that's a very small minority, and a lot of people, they are just lost, like you're saying, they're
Mhm.
just in the darkness and they don't realize that they're there, and so they're stuck on this frequency. Like
Mhm.
the best way to I could think of is like how you have a radio and you turn in the dial, and so in the map with the X and Y axis, the static that you hear, a lot of people stuck on that station,
Mhm.
and it's chaos, and they can't make sense out of what is going on in their life, what their purpose is, like why these bad things keep happening. It's like there's no safety, there's no peace. It's just chaos. And you once the dial gets turned to a different station, you start to hear a difference. Things start to make a little more sense.
Mhm.
And so it's like sometimes it takes a spark, it takes a person, it takes being exposed to somebody or something you hadn't been exposed to before to help shift that dial to something that makes sense.
Right.
And, like, I think sometimes life is a series of just twisting the knobs
Mhm.
until we get to the station
Mhm.
that is God's station.
Yeah.
And once we get on God's station, we're like, "Oh, wow, this is the frequency I've
Mhm.
been looking for.
Mhm.
I finally found something that matters to me." And in the ideal world, once we find that frequency, we stay on it. But it's kinda like, I don't know if you ever had a car with a radio on it. Sometimes you change the station just to see what else is on the radio, right? And
Mhm.
so I realize as human beings, sometimes we get a habit of like we are in our purpose. We in that place where divine destiny and free will is jiving, and
Mhm.
then we like, I've been listening to this station for too long. Let me see what's on this next
Ah,
station
I know
over.
it's like curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like that concept. And you speaking of this reminds me of something I heard. Jordan Peterson again
Oh
talks
wow.
about this. Is
Me
that
and Jordan Peterson need to have a talk.
yes, Jordan, we would like to have you on the show and learn from you. He speaks about how basically like going into the challenges in life it can activate certain parts of you. So like when you do face different things, I mean this is not verbatim how he
Mhm,
explains
mhm,
it, but when you face different obstacles or challenges or I mean, different decisions in life, it can activate certain parts of you and change you. It rewires your brain
mhm,
to where then
mhm.
you actually become a different person and a different self. And it just, as you're, saying that, it reminded me of that component. So it's like you hear the different, or somebody might do something or say something in front of you that then sparks you to
Mhm,
change. Then you begin seeing the world in a different way. You
mhm,
approach things differently. It's because you're actually physiologically changing because
mhm.
parts of you are waking up or activating.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. Like we're all vibrating. Like we are everything is vibrating at a high level. Like all of this. Just the and I don't know the exact science of it all, but when you listen to the science it makes sense. But things that are harder and solid are vibrating at one frequency, things that are softer is vibrating another frequency. And it's
Yeah.
like human beings, we're like just energy, just like
Mm-hmm.
essentially
That's
waves,
why you
right?
can feel it too. It's like I had this theory, and I feel like it's been proven. I can't remember the studies, but I just remember having this concept come to me where, like, when you go into someone's house, you can feel the difference in energy. You go in their
Uh-huh.
car, you feel the difference in energy.
Yes.
Someone's bedroom, definitely, you can feel the difference in their energy. And it's like energy, it absorbs, like things absorb your energy. So
Mhm.
you can go into someone's home that's happy and cheery, and you can
Yes.
feel the lightness. You can
Yes.
feel the air. You can feel
Mhm.
this joy. You can feel that frequency, that vibration. You
Mhm.
go into like someone that's miserable and just
Mm.
weighed down and depressed, and you feel the weight. You feel that
Mhm.
heaviness. And it's the same concept with heat and temperature, like
Mhm.
hot molecules in the warmth, they vibrate quickly, things move faster, and in the cold, everything's stagnant, the
Mhm.
atoms don't move as quick, and it like we can be compared to that.
Mhm.
Our temperature. That's why people
Mhm.
say you're on fire, right? You're
Mhm.
vibrating at a high frequency. You're moving. You're
Yeah.
constantly like
Yeah, and
you're
I mean,
grinding.
if you think about the
Like
some of the, like, most famous speakers, like Tony Robbins and a lot of those guys, they vibrating so high, like, they're just sweating, like or you got a pastor on stage, they
yeah.
just sweating because
Yep.
they vibrating so high,
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, no, I
Right.
definitely think there's some
Mhm.
correlation between that.
Yeah. Like Tony Robbins says, motion is emotion. Yeah. Right? Energy, emotion, emotion.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But speaking of vibrating high, we want to thank you all for joining us. Corey, do you have any closing thoughts on today's concepts, constructs, and theories?
yes. My closing thought is everyone should go stream my new single all day, every day. It's a banger
Yes.
and it's about just staying focused, staying on that path. How you once you get on that divine will, that divine energy and that free will, while you are take living out your purpose, just stand with it all day, every day. Just don't give up. Keep going. Keep staying focused, no matter what people say, no matter what obstacles is coming against you. You just gotta keep going.
Always and in all ways.
Yes. With
Mhm.
God, all things are possible. So put God first and keep grinding.
We agree with that here in Exploiting the Explicit. And we want to thank you all again for joining us and watching episode 6. Please share any thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. Have a wonderful day.